back. Let me tell you the truth. Most people aren't stuck because they lack talent or opportunity. They're stuck because they're making one massive mindset mistake back. They keep waiting for something outside them to change before they do. You don't need more motivation, more time, or more luck. You need ownership. Because the moment you stop blaming, stop waiting, and start moving, that's the moment your entire life changes. You're waiting to feel ready. That's the biggest trap that keeps people in the same place year after year. You tell yourself that when you have more confidence, more clarity, or more time, then you'll finally start. But that moment never comes because readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. The truth is, back. Every person who built something meaningful started before they felt ready. They acted while doubting themselves. They moved when their hands were shaking, when their voice trembled, and when their plan was half formed. Waiting to feel ready is like waiting for fear to disappear. It never does. You just get stronger at acting through it. The lie we buy into is that successful people are confident before they start. Back, we see the end result, not the messy beginning. We watch them perform and assume they were born certain, but confidence is a skill, not a trait. It's earned, not given. Back, it's the byproduct of doing something repeatedly until you stop fearing it. The first time you do anything new, you'll feel like an imposter because you are one. You're new. You're unqualified. Back, you're uncomfortable. But those feelings aren't proof you should stop. They're proof you're growing. Every master was once awkward. Every leader was once terrified. Confidence shows up after courage. Back, not before it. You think you need more motivation, but motivation isn't what you're missing. You're missing momentum. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls. Momentum is mechanical. It compounds. It back. One small action taken today, even if it's imperfect, creates energy that makes the next action easier. But the longer you sit in overthinking, the heavier that first step becomes. Your brain will always find a reason to delay. I'll start when I know more. I'll start when I have time. I'll start when I feel sure. Those thoughts sound logical, but they're fear in disguise. Momentum doesn't wait for motivation. It creates it. You move first, then the feeling follows. We've been conditioned to believe that preparation equals progress. We love to plan, organize, back, and visualize because it gives the illusion of movement without the risk of failure. You can't fail at planning. But planning doesn't build confidence. Execution does. Get back. The only way to know what works is to start and learn through the feedback of doing. Every failure you fear is actually the data you need to improve. Every attempt, even the bad ones, moves you closer to mastery. Get back. The person who takes one messy action learns more than the person who spends years trying to perfect their first move. Readiness doesn't come from knowing. It comes from doing. Back. Your comfort zone is the most expensive place you can live because it costs you potential. Comfort feels safe, but it's actually slow decay. Every time you choose ease over effort, back. You reinforce fear's control over you. The discomfort you avoid today becomes the regret you live with tomorrow. People think fear is the enemy, but fear is just feedback. It's your brain saying, this matters. The goal isn't to eliminate fear. It's to stop obeying it. You can feel fear and still move forward. Back. The gap between who you are and who you want to be will always require walking through discomfort. That's the toll for growth. When you start before you're ready, you build a different kind of muscle, resilience. You stop waiting for external validation and learn to trust your ability to figure things out. You realize that failure isn't final, it's feedback. Every setback becomes a skill. Every mistake becomes a teacher. Back. You stop asking, am I capable, and start proving that you are. The people who win in life aren't the most talented. They're the ones who keep showing up when it's uncomfortable. Action builds identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who does hard things, and that belief compounds into unstoppable momentum. Confidence is not built in comfort, it's forged in repetition. Every rep of action builds the mental muscle of belief. Think of it like the gym. You don't get strong by reading about push-ups. You get strong by doing them. The same rule applies to growth. You can't think your way into confidence, you have to act your way into it. That means showing up even when you don't feel ready, saying yes when fear says no, and betting on yourself before the evidence exists. Back. The more you act, the more you realize you were always capable. You just needed proof, and proof only comes through doing. We tell ourselves stories that protect our comfort. I'm not ready. It's not the right time. I need more resources. But those stories are cages disguised as logic. They're how fear hides behind responsibility. The truth is, back. You'll never feel fully prepared for something that changes you. Growth always feels like chaos in the beginning. You'll question yourself. You'll feel exposed. You want to quit? Back. That's the tax for transformation. The people who move anyway discover that the fear doesn't kill them. It sharpens them. Readiness isn't a state of mind. It's a side effect of consistent action. Back. Action is the only antidote to doubt. You can't outthink fear. You have to outrun it. When you act, your brain collects evidence that you're capable. Every time you follow through, even in small ways, you prove to yourself that you can be trusted. That self-trust compounds into confidence. It's not about massive leaps. It's about consistent micro-movements. Back. The gap between inaction and progress is often just a single uncomfortable decision. One email sent, one call made, one attempt started. Those small acts build unstoppable internal proof that you're someone who moves. but not someone who waits. If you wait to feel ready, you'll wait forever. There's no magical moment when fear fades and clarity appears. Back. You'll always doubt yourself at the start of something new because that's how growth feels. The people who change their lives aren't fearless. They just stop expecting comfort. They understand that courage is a choice made in the presence of fear, not the absence of it. They don't wait for confidence. They build it one imperfect step at a time. And every time they act without permission, without certainty, they move closer to becoming the person they were meant to be. You confuse learning with progress, and that's one of the biggest reasons you feel stuck. You think that reading, watching, or listening is the same as doing, but it's not. Consuming content gives you the illusion of growth without the cost of action. It feels productive because you're stimulating your brain, but it's a trap. Every time you learn something new and don't apply it, you reinforce procrastination disguised as preparation. The world doesn't reward what you know. It rewards what you use. You can't think your way into transformation. You have to act your way into it. Most people stay students forever because learning is safe, but execution is exposure. Information without implementation is entertainment. You can read 100 books on discipline and still hit snooze every morning. You can memorize every business strategy and still never launch. The gap between knowledge and progress is execution. And that's where most people fall apart. They think understanding a concept equals mastery, but mastery is born through repetition, failure, and feedback. The truth is, you don't need more knowledge. You need more courage to act on what you already know. You've already consumed enough to change your life 10 times over. The problem isn't ignorance, it's inconsistency. You're not lacking information, you're lacking proof through action. Learning feels like movement, but it's not momentum. You can spend hours taking notes, organizing plans, and watching motivational videos, yet never take one real step forward. That's because your brain gets a dopamine hit from the illusion of progress. It feels satisfying to learn, but your results don't change because your behavior doesn't. Real progress requires friction. It demands doing the hard, boring, repetitive stuff that no one applauds. You can't study your way to confidence. You build it by doing the thing and surviving the discomfort. Growth doesn't come from collecting information. It comes from applying it in real life until it sticks. You've built a habit of consuming instead of creating. Every time you open another podcast or course before implementing the last one, you teach your brain that consumption equals contribution. But the truth is, knowledge hoarded is potential wasted. If information alone created success, everyone would be rich, fit, and fulfilled by now. The people who win aren't the ones who know the most. They're the ones who execute the fastest. They learn, apply, adapt, and move. They don't wait for perfect clarity. They create clarity through motion. Learning is supposed to be the starting point, not the final destination. The doing is where the lesson actually begins. You can't grow through theory alone because theory is comfortable. You can understand how something works conceptually, but you'll never embody it until you've failed with it. The mind loves certainty, but execution requires chaos. When you apply what you learn, you expose yourself to mistakes, rejection, and feedback. And that's why so many people avoid it. They'd rather stay students of success than risk looking foolish while becoming successful. But knowledge that's never tested dies in your head. The people who make progress are the ones who are willing to look stupid, mess up, and try again. That's how real learning happens. Through experience, not consumption. Execution has a cost, and that's why most people avoid paying it. When you act, you risk failure. When you stay learning, you feel smart without risking anything. But progress demands discomfort. Take it back. You'll never know how much you're capable of until you do something that challenges your competence. Every time you execute, you collect data. You see what works, what doesn't, and where you need to improve. That feedback is more valuable than any theory. It teaches you in a way no book ever can. The discomfort of action is the tuition fee for wisdom. Those who pay it grow. Those who avoid it stay stuck in potential. You don't need a new course. You need accountability. The reason you don't apply what you learn is because no one is watching and there's no consequence for inaction. You can read all day without results, but when you put something on the line, time, money, reputation, you force yourself to move. That's why execution creates identity. Every small follow through tells your brain that I'm someone who does what I say. Over time, that belief compounds into self-trust, and self-trust turns into unstoppable momentum. You can't build self-respect through consumption. It only comes from consistent action that aligns with your goals. The difference between learners and achievers is simple. Learners collect, achievers convert. Achievers take what they learn and turn it into output. They measure success not by how much they know, but by how much they create. They're not trying to be the smartest. They're trying to be the most effective. You can spend years learning about fitness, leadership, or business and still stay the same if you never act. Knowledge becomes powerful only when it's weaponized through execution. The process of applying what you learn forces you to grow in ways no classroom ever could. You don't need more lessons, you need more implementation. When you stop confusing learning with progress, you start to see how much time you've been wasting it back. You realize that success is less about knowing what to do and more about having the discipline to do it repeatedly. You stop chasing new information and start refining what already works. You build mastery through focus, not variety. Every time you apply what you learn, you close the gap between potential and performance. The mistake most people make is trying to collect shortcuts instead of building skill. But skill is built through cycles of action, reflection, and correction, not endless preparation. The truth is, learning never stops, but it should never replace doing. Knowledge is supposed to serve execution, not substitute it. Every great result you admire was born from someone who dared to act before they knew everything. They learned by moving, not waiting. They didn't confuse understanding with achievement. They turned insight into output. The people who move the fastest aren't reckless, they're iterative. They don't need perfect plans. They just need the courage to start, the humility to fail, and the discipline to keep going. You don't become great by learning more. You become great by using what you already know. You are addicted to short-term validation, and it's quietly killing your long-term potential. You post your goals before you've earned them, talk about your dreams more than you work on them, and seek praise for effort instead of results. Every time someone compliments your intention, your brain mistakes that applause for achievement. It feels good to be seen trying, but that feeling steals the hunger to finish. You trade progress for perception without even realizing it. You crave recognition more than results because validation is easy and effort is exhausting. The people who look the most motivated online are often the ones doing the least offline. When you share too early, you burn the very fuel you need to keep going. Take it back. The human brain releases dopamine when others approve of us, and that chemical hit tricks you into believing you've accomplished something. But all you've done is talk. Talking becomes a substitute for doing. You start performing progress instead of creating it. You crave likes instead of results, and the more you do it, the more you train yourself to work for applause instead of mastery. True confidence isn't built from being seen. It's built from what you do when no one is watching. Silence is where self-trust is formed. The addiction to validation runs deep because it's comfortable. Being seen as trying feels safer than being judged for failing. You can protect your ego by staying in the realm of intention because intentions can't fail, only actions can. But the cost of that comfort is growth. Every time you seek approval before you've earned results, you're asking for permission to stay small. Growth requires being misunderstood. It demands that you go through seasons where no one claps for you, no one notices your grind, and no one understands your choices. The silence isn't a sign you're invisible, it's a test of whether your drive is internal or borrowed. Social media has turned validation into a drug. You can get instant feedback for minimal effort. And that rewires your brain to crave approval over achievement. You post a highlight, a quote, or a plan and people cheer, and suddenly you feel like you've moved forward. But that illusion keeps you stuck. The more you share prematurely, the less pressure you feel to execute. You've already received the reward your brain was chasing, the recognition. But the most dangerous part, you start defining success by how people react instead of what you've actually produced. External validation becomes your scoreboard, and that's a game you'll always lose. Real growth happens in isolation, not exposure. The people who create extraordinary results often disappear for a while. They go dark. They're not broadcasting every step because they're too busy building something real. Silence isn't weakness. It's focus. When you stop feeding off validation, you begin to crave results. You start valuing the satisfaction that comes from completion over the temporary comfort of approval. The quiet grind is where you learn discipline, resilience, and self-respect. Because when no one is watching and you still show up, that's when identity shifts from wanting to appear great to becoming actually great. Validation is a trap disguised as connection. You think you're building community, but you're building dependency. You rely on others to tell you're doing well instead of measuring yourself by your own standards. That's why your motivation fades when applause stops. You've tied your drive to external noise instead of internal purpose. The moment people stop noticing, you stop moving. But progress requires detachment. It demands that you care more about the mission than the momentary opinions of others. When your validation comes from purpose, you become unstoppable. When it comes from praise, you become fragile. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be recognized, it's human. But when recognition becomes your oxygen, you suffocate your potential. You start working to maintain an image rather than build a reality. You spend more time curating perception than improving performance. You stop taking risks because risks might make you look inconsistent or imperfect. But perfection doesn't inspire, progress does. People who win long-term are willing to look average today to be exceptional tomorrow. They understand that legacy is built in silence, not spotlight. They don't need validation because their vision validates itself through consistent action. The problem with short-term validation is that it feels good immediately, but costs you long-term fulfillment. It's like sugar. It gives you a quick rush and then leaves you empty. You get hooked on the feedback loop, plan, share, praise, repeat. But without real execution, you never experience the deep satisfaction that comes from actual achievement. That satisfaction only arrives when your results start speaking louder than your words. The applause you crave now can't compete with the pride of seeing something through. Validation fades fast, self-respect compounds. You can't fake the peace that comes from follow-through. The people who accomplish the most often talk the least because they understand energy management. Every time you announce what you'll do, you release the tension that was supposed to drive it back. That tension is powerful. It's your internal fire. But when you replace it with public affirmation, you lose momentum. Silence keeps that fire alive. It keeps you obsessed with results rather than reactions. Back, the best revenge against doubt isn't proving people wrong. It's executing until no one can ignore you. When your work starts speaking louder than your mouth, that's when validation becomes irrelevant. The real reward is becoming undeniable. Validation is temporary, but mastery is permanent. Every like, every comment, every cheer fades within minutes. But skill, consistency, and results, they last. Back. The moment you stop needing people to notice you is the moment you free yourself to focus entirely on growth. The hunger for approval turns into hunger for excellence. The desire to be seen turns into a drive to improve. Back. The people who change their lives don't chase attention. They earn it by becoming so good that the world can't look away. You don't need validation when your results tell the story for you. You blame circumstances instead of taking ownership, and that's the mindset mistake that keeps you exactly where you are. You tell yourself stories about why things are hard, why people don't understand, to take it back. And why your situation is different. Those stories sound reasonable, but they quietly hand over your power. Every time you say, I can't, because you're building a wall between you and progress. Ownership is uncomfortable because it forces you to face the truth. You are responsible for where you are and where you go next. Most people never get there because blame is easier than change. Back. But until you take ownership, you can't create transformation. It's easier to point fingers at circumstances because it protects your ego. If the world is the problem, then you don't have to change. Back. You can stay the same and still feel right, but that's the trap. The more you blame, the more helpless you become. Ownership isn't about guilt, it's about power. It's not saying everything is your fault. Get back. It's saying you have the ability to respond differently. The moment you realize that, you start playing offense instead of defense. Life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. Back, you stop waiting for conditions to improve because you become the condition that improves everything else. We live in a culture that loves victimhood because it's comforting. You get empathy, you get attention. Back, you get understanding, but you don't get progress. Victimhood feels safe because it removes responsibility, but it also removes freedom. You can't grow if you keep identifying as someone things happen to. Back. Every successful person had every reason to complain, yet they didn't. They chose ownership. They decided that even if it wasn't their fault, it was still their problem to solve. But ownership doesn't mean you enjoy hardship. It means you refuse to let hardship define you. That shift is the foundation of all personal power. When you take ownership, everything changes. Your perspective, your energy, your results. You stop wasting time explaining why it's hard and start figuring out how to make it happen. You stop needing sympathy and start demanding results. Back. The people who move the fastest in life aren't the luckiest. They're the ones who stopped arguing for their limitations. They replaced excuses with execution. Ownership doesn't care about comfort. It cares about outcomes. When you make that shift, your focus sharpens. Back, you start seeing opportunities where others see obstacles because you believe everything is figure out able if you're willing to take responsibility. Ownership is the dividing line between average and exceptional. Average people wait for permission, perfect timing, or external help. Exceptional people act regardless of conditions. They don't ask, who's to blame? They ask it back. What can I do? That question changes everything. It moves you from powerless to powerful, from reactive to proactive. You can't control every event, but you can always control your reaction. The faster you accept that, the faster you grow, because ownership gives you leverage. It puts your destiny back in your hands. The moment you stop making excuses, back, you start making progress that no one can take credit for except you. Blame feels good in the moment because it relieves pressure. It gives you a reason not to try, and it justifies your lack of results. But that relief is temporary, and the regret it breeds lasts a lifetime. Ownership, on the other hand, is pressure in the short term, but freedom in the long run. When you own your choices, you also own your outcomes. You stop waiting for luck, for help, or for ideal circumstances. You realize that every problem is either a test or a teacher. Life will always throw chaos your way, but ownership turns chaos into clarity. Back. The person who owns everything controls everything. You can't build confidence without ownership because confidence comes from evidence. And evidence is built through accountability. When you start taking full responsibility for your results, good or bad, you build unshakable trust with yourself. You no longer depend on motivation because you're driven by integrity. You stop saying, I hope it works out, and start saying, I'll make it work. That shift changes how you show up. Ownership forces consistency, and consistency builds credibility. Back. Every small act of accountability becomes proof that you can count on yourself, and when you can count on yourself, you become unstoppable. And most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they avoid accountability. They want the reward without the responsibility. They want success without the ownership it requires. Take it back, but responsibility is the price of freedom. You can't claim the outcome without owning the process. The people who rise are the ones who stop outsourcing their power. They understand that no one's coming to save them. Back. That realization might hurt, but it's liberating. Because when you stop waiting, you start creating. Ownership is the gateway from limitation to liberation. It's the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. Take it back. Taking ownership doesn't mean you control everything. It means you control your response to everything. That's the mindset of leaders, creators, and high performers. Back. They don't waste time complaining because they understand energy is finite. Every minute spent blaming is a minute not spent building. The moment you redirect that energy inward, back, you start changing faster than your environment. You stop being a passenger in your life and become the driver. That's where transformation begins. Not when circumstances change, but when your perspective does. Ownership turns obstacles into opportunity and resistance into resilience. The truth is, you can't rewrite your story until you take ownership of the pen. Life will always be unfair, unpredictable, back, and uncontrollable in some ways. But your reaction, your habits, your choices, that's where your power lies. Every time you choose responsibility over excuses, you reclaim a piece of that power. You stop being the victim of your story and start becoming the author of it. Ownership doesn't guarantee ease, but it guarantees growth. And the people who grow are the ones who rise. Because at the end of the day, bet no one can hold you back more than the excuses you believe. And no one can push you forward faster than the ownership you choose.